All the coffee we drink is supplied by Bank Cafe. And in the hot seat, Bishop Zach Niringiye. Let's take some feedback from our listeners. Marshall says, Charles, wish for us, the good old bishop, a nice retirement, and tell him we are waiting for him to come and we fight for Uganda's democracy. Bishop?
A piece at a time, education. Let's talk about it. Because sometimes we talk democracy. Let's put legs to it. It's to do with education for our children, healthcare. It's to do with food on the table for our families, household incomes. That's really what I want us to be talking about. And if democracy doesn't deliver that, governance doesn't, that's what we need to talk about.
The people who believe, Bishop, that actually using these platforms of education, of the restoration of term limits, good governance and democracy, you've retired, but maybe you're looking at politics.
Let me tell you, education, healthcare, that is politics. If politics doesn't deliver education for our people, healthcare, food on the table, excuse me, so that's politics, do I say civics? And we are therefore holding accountable the political class to do the right thing, for them to earn the right to be there. And this is not new. Let me tell you, people confuse. The Bible is the Bible is deeply concerned for the well-being of the people. That's politics. The Bible is full of justice. That's it. So let's not, this gets diversionary. Politics. No, let's talk about education for our children.
Okay, let me take more feedback from our listeners. Matthew says, Bishop, is it true that repressive governments are brought into existence by God as a punishment to sinners?
No.
What is true?
What is true is that the church abandons its message. In this case, by the way, Charles, I want to tell the bishop and the rest of the clergy, like I've said before, there is a complicity of silence on all these issues. It is not as if the platform that you control on Sundays and when you minister to your population, to your congregation, is not as powerful as that of the government.
Angelo, it is the same. The points, I agree.
It is the same.
I agree. We've been silent.
They are the same. They are the same responsibility.
And I have not shied away from saying that. I have said to you, foundation bodies, churches, indeed. But it's time. Let's stop crying over what we haven't done. Now we are saying it's time to act. Failure to act will pay serious consequences. So absolutely, when people fail to take their responsibilities, it's a consequence. It's not a curse, it's a consequence.
Okay, let me run through these messages, feedback from our listeners. John Quinto says, Zach, the Archbishop Luke Orombe has asked the public to focus on forgiveness this Easter season to promote peace and reconciliation in the country. Is this realistic between the warring factions of Museveni and Besigye?
Forgiveness must be, and it should be all the time. We would plead that in addition to facing each other and putting the past behind, it's possible for them to also speak about the future. You see, sometimes we speak about forgiveness flippantly and think forgiveness means forget, let's not talk about the real issues that have caused the conflict. I think it's also time, as we forgive, to talk about the reasons for the conflicts in this country, for continued violence. And I am saying to you, actually, let's talk about education, let's talk about healthcare, let's talk about youth unemployment. We can talk about forgiveness, and we must, but if we don't deal with these issues, we still have the kinds of conflicts and violence that we have seen. Let's talk about how to deal with these corrupt officials. Let's talk about these things. So yes, forgiveness, amen, but let's also be able to talk about the issues that have caused the kind of mayhem that we are seeing. And by the way, I fear honestly, if we don't talk about these issues clearly and with a loving and a very sober mind, things could get worse.
A new Christian says, do you see yourself running for member of parliament or for president of this country at some time?
That's not something I'm thinking about. I'm devoting myself to the work of ensuring our children get into school, they learn, they have a future. I'm devoting myself to ensure that the 16 women who die every day, that statistic needs to change. I want to devote myself to young people, to be able to ensure young people